Eminence and Shadow, Episode 5, I Am. So this takes place immediately after the previous episode, with Zenon basically about to strike down Alexia when Cid shows up in his shadow gear. And it's kind of funny because when Zenon sees Cid, the very first thing he says, "A man dressed in purest black." And then you see Cid, and Cid's actually dressed in purple. So, of course, they did that because cinematically it looks better. If he was just all in black, then he would basically be hard to see because he would be blending in with the shadows, which is something that you think Cid would actually want to be doing. You know, he is the shadow. Another thing that I find kind of interesting is the fact that the anime has decided to forego masks for the Shadow Garden. So Cid's just wearing a hood. You would think that Alexia, who has spent weeks with Cid, would recognize that face. Maybe even the teacher, since he's taught Cid and kind of used him as a scapegoat for Alexia's kidnapping. Even later on, Alpha is, when she's seen, she's not wearing a mask. And this is a thing that's in the light novel and in the manga. All the Shadow Garden people wear masks so that people can't know their identity. But the anime decided to forego that. So instead, we just see them, and they're, especially Alpha. Alpha is just right out in the open. You can see her face clearly. Cid, the only thing he has is a hood, which might shadow a little bit of the upper half of his face, but still, you can easily see him. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. But yeah, him and Cid are about to clash swords. And we cut to the city streets where we have the monster rampaging, and we have all these knights trying to stop it, and they are weak as hell. It is kind of funny. It's reminding me a lot of Attack on Titan, because you have this giant Titan-looking creature attacking these guys who are wearing like the brown and green uniforms. It just reminds me of Attack on Titan. But Iris shows up, and she shows up for skills. She lays some big blows on this creature, slices the crap out of it. But no matter what she does, she can't damage this thing. Like if she slices, cuts, it just immediately heals. Doesn't matter how deep the wound is. Nothing that she does is having any kind of effect on this creature. And of course, she decides, well, if you just keep regenerating every time I cut you, then I'm just going to have to cut you into smaller pieces so that you can't regenerate. And of course, that plan fails. And that's when Alpha shows up. She tells Iris, all you're doing is hurting her. And Alpha jumps into the air and one-shots this creature. Like she comes down, magic on her sword, one-shots it. Titan creature transforms back into its original form, which is a little girl, and she's holding a locket. And the locket is actually the locket that was owned by, oh, what the hell was his name? The Baron guy from episode 2, the one that kidnapped Claire. This is his daughter. So his daughter was kidnapped by Zenon, and a bunch of tests were run on her to make her into this monster. So it's kind of like a sad little moment, but then it's kind of briefly just moved on. Alpha tells Iris that they're part of Shadow Garden and to stay out of our way. And she disappears, and there's a huge explosion. And Iris goes to look for Alexia. And then we just cut back to Cid and Zenon fighting. Yeah, it's Zenon basically unleashing all his skills, and Cid just countering every single blow that Zenon tries to give him. And as Alexia is watching this, she realizes that Cid, she doesn't know it's Cid, but she realizes that this figure is not using any grand techniques. All of his fencing skills are ordinary, which goes back to her style. And she basically remarks that, you know, while her sister was a prodigy, she tried to get out of her sister's shadow, and she knew that she didn't really have the same skills as her sister, so she wanted to master the basics of fencing so well that she becomes as great as Cid is now showing. Yeah, this basically is Alexia's moment where she grows up and she kind of realizes that there is something behind just having ordinary style when it comes to sword fighting. So that's when Zenon shows this tablet that he has filled with 7 pills. And the pills basically can awaken a new nature beyond human limitations. If an ordinary person took them, they would be overwhelmed by the tremendous power and die. And so Zenon, he chugs the bottle. And the funny thing is, like I said, there's 7 tablets inside, 7 pills inside this bottle. 2 of them are still in the bottle when he drops it. 2 of them don't even make it into his mouth. Now, of the 3 that do, he only ends up eating 2.5, because another half of it, he bites one of the pills in half and it falls out. So I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I just thought it was funny, where it's like, you know, he's chugging this bottle and then like most of it don't even make it into his mouth. But yeah, he basically goes Super Saiyan and he unleashes this like demonic power. But again, he's no match for Cid. Cid just beats the crap out of him. Stops him in this track. And that's when Cid pulls this crazy OP ability. First, he says how unsightly it is, and how this guy calling himself almighty, like his almighty skills, is a blasphemy towards those who are actually almighty. And that there are no shortcuts to becoming skilled. You got to earn your own power. And so Cid creates this magic barrier around him and Zenon. And then he gives this spiel about how there once was a man who was training to be able to withstand a nuclear bomb. And this man failed. But he didn't give up. And he kept on practicing and practicing. I'm pretty sure you can guess who that man is. That man is Cid. So Cid was training to be able to withstand a nuclear bomb. First off, it's kind of funny that he mentions this because I don't think any of these people know what the hell a nuclear bomb is. Maybe there is nuclear power in here, but this is basically a fantasy world with magic. I don't think there's any such thing as nuclear bombs. So this guy's probably like, what the hell are you talking about? What the hell is a nuclear bomb? But yeah, Cid goes, I discovered that the only way to withstand a nuclear bomb is to become nuclear myself. And so Cid gathers up all this energy, and in English, he says, I am atomic. And he basically detonates his skill. So yeah, Cid just drops a nuclear bomb on this city, in a sense. And he destroys, like he just blows a huge hole in the middle of this city. Thankfully for Cid, the city was already being evacuated because of the monster that was fighting the city earlier. But Cid doesn't know this. Cid has no idea that all these people, the civilians, have been evacuated. For all he knows, civilians are still there. The knights who are, evacuating the citizens might still be around. He has no idea, but yeah, he unleashes a nuclear blast in this city and completely vaporizes Zenon. Alexia is unscathed because she was outside this magical barrier. It's weird because she's outside this magical barrier, which isn't that big. It's just kind of big enough to cover Zenon and Cid. Yet when we see the actual explosion, the explosion is way bigger than the magical barrier. So how did Alexia survive this blast when she's right there? Anyways, there's a huge blast. We see Shadow Garden kind of watching this. Alpha's just kind of, taking in the explosion. Beta has this like fangirl, glorious expression on her face as she's happily writing down notes on Cid unleashing this nuclear blast. Delta is looking on in glee, and I was like, yes, this is only like one of 2 sightings we see of Delta in this episode. I want more Delta. And yeah, when the blast is gone, there's nothing but a huge hole. Alexia is there. Zenon is gone. Cid is gone. Iris shows up, hugs her sister, and Alexia basically stops becoming, what's the word I want to say, jealous of her sister. We cut to the next day where Alexia is talking to Cid, and Alexia basically kind of confesses to Cid without straight up confessing. Like she says, we've been practicing, we were pretending to be a couple for weeks. Zenon is now gone. How would you like to maintain our act of being a couple? So this is basically her way of trying to ask Cid out without just straight up asking him out, because she has too much pride in that. And Cid gives her this smile, And then he gives her a thumbs up. Then immediately thumbs down. He says, hell no. And so, yeah, Alexia slashes him. Like, we don't actually see this, but we see a bunch of blood splatter. And Cid remarks about how there was a bodiless murder. Like, there's this huge blood pile. No one knows what happened. There was no body around. No one reported being injured. And this became one of the school's 7 mysteries. And then we cut to Shadow Garden, where they are talking about their next plans. And they realize that there's this other group out there that are going around saying that they're Shadow Garden and that people should fear them. So next up, we have the fake Shadow Garden arc. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing that. And also in this scene, we get our second sighting of Delta, which made me happy. And then, yeah, we see Cid, and he's walking down the road, and he bumps into this girl, knocks down all her books. And then we have this funny moment where he leans down. He outstretches his hand to help her up, and he says, "Are you okay?" And she looks up, and he's completely covered in blood because Alexia had slashed him. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. And I'm like, kind of confused why this anime seems to try to be making a big deal out of this girl. This girl is Sherry. That's her name. She is very insignificant to the overall plot of Eminence and Shadow. I mean, people who have read the light novel and are more proficient in it, let me know if I'm wrong. But Sherry doesn't really have that big of an impact on the story. In fact, her impact is so little that the manga has completely cut her out. Like, she's not even in the manga whatsoever because she hasn't done anything big. That might change. It might have already changed. I don't know. Like, I'm not all that caught up, like I said, with the light novel. I'm way, way, way behind. So most of my knowledge of this series comes from the manga. But yeah, as far as I know, she's not an important character. So I'm wondering why they ended this episode making it seem like this is going to be a big character. Maybe it's just another psych out from the series. But yeah, there you go. Eminence and Shadow. It's basically just a lot of fight scenes. It's just Cid fighting Zenon, and it's Iris trying to fight the monster, then Alpha finishing off the monster, and then just a little bit after that. But yeah, there you go. I liked it. It was a good episode. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. Later.